I first discovered the reboot program from my priest actually. Wanted to do something different than what I had been doing. Obviously, whatever it was I had been doing before was not working. I had my moments of struggle just like everyone else. Take it one step at a time, and you don't have to learn everything all in one day. I definitely don't. Just be persistent, whether that's 3 days, 3 months from now, and you finally get around to doing it. It's getting done because you want to do it.
What is going on, Reboot Team? Chris here with yet another testimonial with somebody who is fairly new in our program by the time we're recording this, but is absolutely crushing it as far as his implementation goes. We're going to get to know his story, where he's coming from, and ultimately where he's at now with his time in our exclusive implementation program. I'm here with the big homie, Frank. How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm doing good, man. Like I said before we started running around, it's been a week, man, but I'm glad that we have got the time to check in. Let's dive into the very, very beginning. Before we dive into where you're at now in your reboot progress and yeah, like how you're feeling and everything, let's start from the very beginning of your story. How did you first discover the reboot program?
So I first discovered the reboot program from my priest actually. Of course I went to him and I talked to him about my, ongoing problem with pornography and other things of course too, but he recommended, a couple of things to me, or really just two things, and this was the main thing, the reboot program. So, I took it, and actually it was funny. I took about a week to actually go back and I will say look at everything. But as soon as I got onto it, I filled out the application, or
Hmm.
whatever you want to say, the survey. Actually, that survey is a better word for it. At first, I was kind of like, oh man, and then it was having me like, have the meeting with the GT and everything, and I was kind of like, oh man, am I gonna actually do this, or am I just gonna like, back out of it? But I was like, what, let's give it a try because my priest had recommended it to me, so and I knew I wanted to do something different than what I had been doing because obviously whatever it was I had been doing before was not working. So yeah, I kind of took it from there, and that's how I got involved.
There you go. I'm curious, what had your journey looked like up until that moment where you joined the program? Like you said, you had tried some things before out of curiosity. Like, what did that include?
Really, yeah, I mean, I say trying things. I mean, maybe reading some articles online, using willpower was really the main thing, just simply telling myself just don't, continue with this behavior.
Right.
I didn't really know of any specific way, other than maybe, I didn't even really wasn't even really serious about like blocking it. It was just simply like don't do it, and like if something comes up and you get like an urge or something, you just don't do it, which this would work at some times. Like I can't say that that doesn't work entirely. There were times where I would go decent periods of time without diving into that behavior again,
Right.
but then I would right back around, and it would just be like a couple of days of just you know the same. And right before I talked to my priest about this whole thing, I kind of was in like a slump where it was just realizing that that's just not working, like I said before. So,
Well, shout out to your priest for, letting you know that we exist. And I'm curious, what was the moment like? So you speak with your priest and you're taking a look at your behaviors, like something's not working here. Before you had that meeting with GT, or around that time even, what was the moment like right before you said, you know what, let's do this for real? Like, let's really dive into this program. Like, what finally pushed you over the edge, if you will?
yeah, I think it was actually one of JK's videos that actually the GT had me watch, if that's what you're looking for. Yeah, because the reason I say that specifically is because I watched one of the videos. I think it was the video where he talks a lot about the different levels, like what level are you at? And as much as that's like, okay, I'm evaluating myself. What really got me was I don't remember specifically what it was, but it basically he was just talking, relaying some vocabulary and some things that people like me and us all say to ourselves. Problematic things, of course, that are kind of a byproduct of this, addiction, this behavior. And I was like, wow, these are some things that because it wasn't any one thing. It was a handful of things where I was like, wow, this is something that even in other groups that I had been in that where we like talked about this subject material, pornography and masturbation and whatnot. No one, including myself, had shared that specific line, but that was something that I had been feeling. So like when I heard like, when I heard those phrases or those, that sentence or, the feeling was expressed in words, I was just like, nah, this is it. Because like if he's already hitting on this just from this video, then like clearly like they all know what they're doing, and they're experienced. So I'm gonna put my trust in, or at least, I mean, start to. And of course, it's been an ongoing process as I've gotten deeper into the program. But yeah, I mean, it was when I heard they say, I think it was something like one of the things was, now that's coming back to me, was that a certain level of being consumed by this behavior, you start to feel like you can constantly upgrade your partner. So I'm in a committed relationship. I've been with my girlfriend for a little over 5 years now. But full disclosure, as I've had that feeling where you're like this irrational thought where you're always, and it would never end. You're with someone and then you're like, oh well, I can constantly upgrade. And this feeling where you're
Mm,
feeling like you need to be compulsive and be attached to someone else who you think is more attractive or whatever else. But it's not even it's not a feeling of genuine love or a genuine connection. It's a feeling based on lust, feeling based on impulse, feeling based on, a handful of other things that are not good.
right.
And yeah, so that was something that I felt and never been able to communicate or never heard it communicated back to me by anyone else. But then, like I said, when JK said that, I was like, okay, yeah, this is it.
I really appreciate you articulating that because I'm like hyped up because that is something that it resonates with me, and I appreciate you being vulnerable about it because if we're being honest with ourselves, it is that novelty aspect, that we are kind of attached to emotionally. Like the grass is always greener on the other side. Like, the thing about pornography that is one of the things that makes it one of the most genius inventions of all time is that sense of novelty. It's like even if you've quote unquote seen it all, there's always something more. It's like, there's got to be something more, and it manifests in the way we live our lives, particularly when you're in an intimate relationship with somebody else. There's always got to be something better. We've been trained in many ways, conditioned to operate that way and behave that way. And it's indicative of somebody who just might have a history of sexually compulsive behaviors. Major stuff. So it really resonates with me. And I know for a fact it does with many others. So again, thank you for verbalizing that. And having had those realizations, you come into the program guns blazing, like let's do this. I'm curious as to what your experience has been so far. Like let's start with maybe one piece at a time. Like what has the Facebook community been like for you so far?
Oh, it's been great, lots of great guys on there, all extremely supportive. I wasn't expecting anything less, but when you're interacting with people, some people might rub you the wrong way, or you just might not get along, and that's okay. But like, I mean, every single guy has offered his support, his, when they leave a comment on my post, it's genuine. They took the time to read it and not just read it and be like, oh yeah, great man, or whatever. It's they read it, they understood it, and they like provide like either it's advice or like, hey man, did you try this? Or, and it's not even advice in like oh, you need to do this. Like this is the way. It's like, hey man, like, if it's a good, advice on the good things, but also advice on like, hey, maybe I'm reaching out for something and they say, hey, try this or have you considered this or helping me to get curious about things. Yeah, and then so yeah, just and then that and then of course I have my accountability partner, and we've been working well together. And then, same with on like when we have group coaching sessions, all the guys on there, just even if I don't have a question to ask, usually I get on there and I'm constantly surprised about like the questions that people ask. Because again, it's just more of like, wow, okay, I've definitely felt that way. Or maybe even at first, like I'll hear a question and the conversation will start and I'll be like, I don't really know how this applies to me, but I'll listen and I'll like, again, surprised at how real it is for me too. So these guys, we're all in the grind together, all extremely supportive, and of course that makes me want to be more supportive back as well. Not just because I feel obligated to, but because I want to, all of us have our strengths and weaknesses, and where one person may be, I don't want to say lacking, but where one person may, yeah, I don't mean that in like a negative way either. Where one person may be looking for one thing, I may have something to share, and vice versa.
Yeah, we're trading notes, we're
Yeah.
we're iron sharpening iron as it were, and even if we slip or even if we deviate, like you said, it's just like, hey, have you tried this? Have you considered that? It's all solutions oriented. And that was one of the big things that I realized, when I joined the program for the first time. I mean, hello, we're all calling each other a word that I think is really important and holds a lot of power. And the word's brother, and it's not just trying to be like, brother, but like on it, like
Yeah,
we
yeah,
we get it. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
It's when it comes to things like pornography or sex or masturbation, I joke with everybody who joins the program for the first time. It's not exactly dinner table conversation, especially when you've been perhaps used to kind of like keeping conversations like that under wraps, sweeping stuff under the rug, and maybe feeling unsafe straight up just to bring up certain topics or feelings or whatever. I get it. But to find a community that actually gets it, but not just in the sense of like, yeah, man, sometimes I, spend too much time online as well. It's like we're all actively trying to do something about it. It's like maybe we're all trying to like get off at a different destination, but we're all traveling on the same highway. So I think that's really cool. And I'm curious, you had alluded to the coaching calls. Any coaching call you want to shout out that maybe you've gotten some value from?
Oh yeah, I mean, funny enough, I'll just saying this just because recently it's the ones I've had time for, so I've put a lot of my energy into it. Is definitely the hot seat call with Orestes, and then the trauma call with Dr. Eastman. Both are, I've made them my weekly routines. Like I usually am off and have time on those days, and if I can help it, I try to plan my days around those calls when they're up. Like I said, both calls, both people have their, areas of expertise and they do it very well. Topics that I would never have thought to discuss or, new things to consider, whether that's, with Dr. Eastman, validate, feel, and I'm blanking on the third aspect of that right now. She
Name, name validate
Okay,
feel.
yes. Name, validate, feel. That one. Yeah, wasn't even the right order, but we were getting there. And then of course, like for yesterday, just for example, with Arestus, sometimes you have the hot seat, and I've been in the hot seat, and that was great. I see why they call it the hot seat now. But also yesterday we did a group like meditation thing. And I've done meditation before, funny enough, and when I was in college, I had a whole psychology class where we would always start by meditating. But I always enjoyed that. And I don't know why I never really thought about it afterwards, but he has actually, encouraged me, not just this is just something I wanted to touch on was, I try to take some time every day for just some mindfulness, like well, I play it on my computer, but, shut the phone off, try not to think of anything else and just, take the time for that.
So good, man. I'm really, really happy about that. I'm curious as to, what have been some of the tools that you've picked up through your time in the program so far?
So, the main thing, I got well, it says rubber band, but I got my hair tie here on my wrist.
Nice.
It's been really reliable. That's helping me just get started to just simply notice my behavior. Of course, I was mindful of my big issue that I had, but I mean, little things like, just seeing people out and about and, I work with the public, so I see a lot of people and, of course, byproduct of this behavior is fantasy and, similar things like that. Thoughts that are not usually ones that I'm like, oh, I can't wait. I wake up and I'm like, oh, I can't wait to do that today. And things that, sometimes it's easier to notice, but other times it's not. And that, snapping that when I think of those things, I mean, I don't even do it that much anymore, I found, but I'm constantly aware of that when it occurs. So like I'm, able to do that. Another thing, of course, is my feelings exercise, which kind of, and I'll get into this a little bit too. So my feelings exercise, of course, I've incorporated that in my morning routine. I make sure it's like the first thing I pretty much do when I wake up. I set my alarm across the room and I wake up and I go right to my journal and I take some time to sit with myself, of course, but I realize how I'm feeling. And that's, may seem small and some days of course I wake up and I'm just like, oh, I feel tired. But like it's great because, looking back on my life, of course it's hard for me to really recall the time when I didn't have this issue, when I didn't have this connection with pornography because it's just been for so long. And of course I've felt feeling, I've been happy, I've been sad. Like I can look back at my time of my life and I can look at times when I've definitely know that I've been those feelings and I felt them. But like to just say like I really felt them now more recently, like to really sit back when I'm frustrated, when I'm truly happy, when I'm truly sad, when I'm angry, or sometimes like today I was going through a period at work where I just sat down and just really was trying to pinpoint where I was feeling because I felt like it was a lot of things all at once.
Mm,
But to really feel them, to just sit with them and not, run to my method of medication, my compulsive sexual behavior. Um,
yeah.
which is
If I may for one
yeah,
second, because I
yeah,
think you're crushing it. Like I love how you're illustrating that because one of the biggest things that like you alluded to, like the feelings exercise, it gives you a medium with which to actually experience your emotions. Now, with enough reps, we can get a lot better at, oh, this is how I know I'm sad. This is how I know I'm pissed off. This is how I know whatever, right? But simply to feel it, there's a difference between feeling your feelings and thinking about your feelings. It's such an important thing, and I'm proud of you for using that tool to get better at that skill,
thank you.
because absolutely. And it's one of those major things. And honestly, within my experience of obviously coming from this world of behaviors myself, but talking to guys all day, like that come from this world too, that's one of the, is they can nail that or make that a solid intention in the first part of their reboot, they have such higher of a chance of not just getting rid of an unhealthy behavior, but living the kind of life that they want to, where they can experience whatever state they're in without being overwhelmed by it, without being overcome and ultimately consumed by it. You can separate yourself from it to the point where you're kind of enlightened in a way. It's like you're over here and whatever feeling or emotion is over here. Therefore, you're not it and it is not you. It's just so cool. And I'm curious, based on your what you're sharing, because I think it's really important, if you were to have the opportunity to maybe speak to somebody who hasn't gotten there yet, maybe someone who is just in their own addictive patterns and cycles, just struggling in silence in the way you and I know about very well, just not really knowing where to turn, what to do. Having experienced what you have so far and what you've learned so far, what might you share with a person like that?
Yeah, and I can actually, of course, I'm not going to get specifics with that, but I've definitely talked to a couple of people who I know, just people I know and people who I would definitely consider friends. I've talked to them. I've come to them to maybe share this, or maybe it was kind of coincidental where it was like they were just about to tell me the same thing.
Yeah.
Of course, I've tried to relay the best I could. I try to when I try to learn things. Funny enough, when my priest first told me about you all, he told me to take what I learn and to learn to the point where I can teach it to others. Of course, I know that that's my main job is to focus on myself for now, but I do like to try and relay what I can because I know it's helpful. So yeah, I mean, I try to just share my experience. I mean, maybe, of course, if there's like the exercise and stuff, I might say, oh, I do this. But it's not like oh, here's how you need to, like, here's what I'm not going to be authoritative about it. I don't really share my experience. I'll share what's helped me. And then, of course, I do mention the program just because I'm like, hey, I mean, that's just a matter of fact. This is what I'm doing. This is where I learned it. This is what I've learned from them. And that's what I usually that's what I have shared so far with a couple people.
That's beautiful, man. That's really, really cool. It's there's such power in conversation and learning what you can learn in this program can help prepare you for those types of conversations. Have you choose relationship instead of isolation. I think it's really, really pure and I think it's really, really awesome. And I'm so glad that you're taking steps in that direction, man. It's really, really inspiring, and that's why I wanted to hop on a call with you because I see you in the group and I see you sharing and I see you attentive and the coaching calls and you're doing the thing, man. And you're only scratching the surface. So sincerely, I'm really proud of what I see so far.
Thanks, man. I'm blessed for sure.
Before I let you go, man, because again, if this makes it to the YouTube channel or the podcast, odds are pretty darn high that if someone comes across our conversation today, they probably have some sort of history when it comes to, sexually compulsive behavior. Yeah, any parting words, anything else to say that we haven't touched on yet?
Yeah, I mean, I share all this right now, and of course, people may be watching this like, man, this guy has it all together. Full transparency is I always like to be honest and transparent, especially now that I've been in this program. But I have my moments of struggle, just like everyone else. I'm not like some superhero. I'm definitely not. If I was, I wouldn't be here, of course. But yeah, I mean, just take it one step at a time, and you don't have to learn everything all in one day. I definitely don't. even if I think I learned something, I think, hey, this is the day I'm finally going to do X, Y, and Z because I want to. Still might not even do it. But just be persistent. Just take your time, enjoy the process. As actually, I was talking to Orestes yesterday. Enjoy the process, whether that's, 3 days, 3 months from now, and you finally get around to doing it. It's getting done because you want to do it. Like you said, wanting to do it. That's the big thing.
There it is, man. I suppose one final, suppose a follow-up question. Would you then in turn recommend this program?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. No question about it.
Sick. Well, you heard it here. Thank you so much, Frank, for your time and your insight and all the continued best to you, man.